A drunk man staggered toward the royal guard, shouting insults and mocking his stoic demeanor in front of a growing crowd. His words grew harsher, and laughter erupted from onlookers. Then, in an act of ultimate disrespect, he humiliated the guard in a way no one expected. He thought his actions would go unanswered, but what happened next left everyone speechless. It was a bright, sunny day at Buckingham Palace, with the golden rays reflecting off its majestic gates. Tourists from around the world gathered in the courtyard, their cameras clicking away as they captured the grandeur of the scene. Excited chatter filled the air as children pointed at the iconic guards, marveling at their stillness and discipline. Some tourists laughed and posed near the guards, treating them like statues, while others whispered in awe, admiring the solemnity of the moment. Amidst the lively crowd stood Lucas Bradford, a royal guard in his pristine red uniform and towering bearskin hat. His posture was unyielding, his gaze fixed forward, a picture of discipline and control. While the crowd bustled and voices rose around him, Lucas remained unmoved, his stillness a symbol of centuries-old tradition. To him, this wasn't just a ceremonial role, it was a duty steeped in history and honor, one he carried with unwavering pride. Despite the noise and distractions, Lucas stood as solid as the gates behind him, embodying the values of respect, dedication, and resilience. Little did anyone in the crowd know that this seemingly ordinary day was about to take an extraordinary turn. Lucas Bradford stood as a living embodiment of discipline and tradition. A proud member of the Royal Guard, he wore his uniform with a sense of honor that came from knowing he represented centuries of history. Every detail of his iconic red tunic and towering bearskin hat wasn't just ceremonial to Lucas, it was a symbol of responsibility, respect, and the values he had sworn to uphold. Lucas wasn't just any guard. His years of service had shaped him into a figure of unwavering professionalism. He had been trained to stand still for hours, ignoring distractions, provocations, and even physical discomfort. His role demanded more than physical strength, it required mental fortitude and a deep respect for what the uniform represented. To Lucas, the Royal Guard wasn't just a tourist attraction, it was a testament to the traditions and pride of his nation. Though he remained silent at his post, his actions spoke volumes. Lucas was the kind of person who believed in duty above all else. Even in moments of mockery or provocation from the crowd, he maintained his composure. Whether it was children trying to make him laugh or tourists treating him like a statue, he never let it affect him. His ability to endure these daily challenges came from years of discipline and a profound understanding of the importance of his role. But Lucas's calm demeanor wasn't just about training, it was also about his pride in serving something bigger than himself. He saw the Royal Guard as more than just a job, it was a way to honor his country's history and the generations of guards who had stood before him. Every day, he donned his uniform with the knowledge that he was part of something enduring and meaningful. Lucas's unshakable professionalism made him a symbol of resilience and strength. To those who observed him, he seemed untouchable, someone who could not be rattled no matter the circumstances. Yet, beneath his calm exterior was a man deeply committed to his values, ready to uphold the dignity of his uniform at any cost. This sense of pride and discipline would soon be tested in a way no one could have foreseen. The peaceful atmosphere of Buckingham Palace was suddenly disrupted by the arrival of an unexpected figure. A man stumbled into the scene, his disheveled clothes and unsteady movements drawing attention. His face was flushed, his eyes bloodshot, and the unmistakable stench of alcohol surrounded him. He clutched an almost empty bottle in one hand, swaying as he muttered to himself in a slurred voice. The joyous chatter of the crowd quieted slightly as they noticed him weaving through the gathering of tourists. This man wasn't here to admire the palace or take in its historical grandeur. His expression carried a mix of bitterness and frustration, and his muttering soon grew louder. Some tourists instinctively stepped back, uneasy about the tension he seemed to carry with him. He scanned the crowd, his darting eyes landing on Lucas Bradford, the Royal Guard standing stoically in his ceremonial post. With a smirk tugging at his lips, the man staggered toward Lucas. "Look at him," he said loudly, gesturing to the guard. "A bloody statue, standing there like he's better than the rest of us." His voice carried across the courtyard, drawing the attention of nearby onlookers. Some tourists chuckled nervously, unsure whether to take him seriously or ignore him altogether. The man's words grew harsher with every step he took toward Lucas. "What's the point of you, huh?" he jeered. "You just stand there all day doing nothing, wearing that ridiculous hat. Is this what they call important work?" Lucas, as always, remained silent and still, his gaze fixed forward. His discipline and composure were unshaken, but the drunk man interpreted his silence as a challenge. Encouraged by the lack of reaction, the man grew bolder. "Come on, mate, say something," he shouted, stepping closer. He waved the bottle in the air, spilling a few drops onto the cobblestone path. The crowd, which had been quietly watching, began to murmur in concern. Some whispered to one another, debating whether someone should intervene. Others recorded the unfolding drama, their phones raised to capture every second. The drunk man's mocking tone escalated into outright aggression. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" he spat. "Standing there like some kind of king while the rest of us actually work for a living." His voice was bitter, laced with resentment and frustration. As he inched closer, the tension in the air grew thicker. The crowd watched with bated breath, unsure how far the man would go or how Lucas would respond. Some tourists began pulling their children away from the scene, while others looked on, captivated by the unfolding confrontation. But the drunk man wasn't done. He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with contempt. "What kind of man lets people laugh at him and do nothing? You're nothing but a joke." The provocation had reached its peak, and the crowd held their breath, anticipating what might happen next. The man's verbal tirade had reached a boiling point. His words, filled with venom and bitterness, had drawn the attention of the entire crowd, who now stood silently, watching the tension build. But it wasn't enough for him to stop at insults, he needed more. His frustration and anger, fueled by alcohol and a bruised ego, demanded an outlet. And Lucas Bradford, standing tall and unshaken, became the target of his rage. With one unsteady step forward, the drunk man closed the remaining distance between himself and Lucas. The guard's calm composure, his silent dignity, only seemed to enrage the man further. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" he sneered. "Let's see how much you can take." And then it happened. In a fit of uncontrolled anger, the man spat at Lucas. The glob of spit landed squarely on Lucas's pristine red tunic, staining it with a glaring mark of disrespect. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, their chatter silenced in an instant. The act was shocking, vile, and utterly unexpected. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The air was heavy with tension as every pair of eyes fixated on Lucas. The guard, known for his discipline and stoic demeanor, remained motionless, his gaze unwavering. The crowd held their breath, wondering if this would be the moment he finally broke his silence. The drunk man, emboldened by his own act, smirked triumphantly. "What now, statue?" he jeered. "Not so perfect anymore, are you?" He staggered back slightly, spreading his arms as if inviting a response. The crowd's unease grew palpable, with some tourists visibly shaken by the sheer audacity of the act. Parents whispered hurriedly to their children, pulling them closer to shield them from the ugliness of the scene. Others simply stood frozen, phones in hand, recording the moment that had suddenly turned from spectacle to something far more serious. The laughter and lightheartedness that had filled the courtyard earlier were now replaced by a tense, stunned silence. Lucas, still unmoving, became the embodiment of restraint. His silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around him. His uniform, once a symbol of pride and tradition, was now defiled, but he refused to let the insult break him. The crowd watched intently, their anticipation building with every second. Would the guard finally react? Would he step out of line to confront the man who had gone too far? Or would he remain a pillar of composure, even in the face of such blatant disrespect? As the drunk man's smirk faltered under the weight of the crowd's judgment, Lucas's calm presence became even more powerful. The tension in the air was almost unbearable, and everyone waited to see what the next moment would bring. This was no longer just a confrontation, it was a test of discipline, honor, and dignity, and Lucas Bradford was about to prove why he wore the uniform with pride. As Lucas Bradford finished his powerful response, the atmosphere in the courtyard transformed. What had moments ago been tense and silent erupted into a wave of applause. The crowd, initially frozen in shock, was now moved by the sheer dignity and strength Lucas had displayed. His calm restraint and heartfelt words struck a chord, turning a moment of humiliation into one of profound respect. Children, who had been watching wide-eyed, looked up at their parents with questions in their innocent eyes. "Why didn't he get mad, Mommy?" a young boy asked. His mother knelt down and explained softly, "Because being strong isn't about shouting or fighting. It's about staying true to who you are, no matter what someone does to you." Around the courtyard, similar conversations unfolded as parents used the moment to teach their children about respect and self-control. The Royal Guard, once just a figure of curiosity for many tourists, now stood as a symbol of something much greater. Lucas's actions had turned an ugly act of disrespect into an inspiring lesson for everyone present. Amidst the crowd, a middle-aged man wearing a veteran's pin stood silently, his eyes glistening. He stepped forward slightly, raised his hand to his temple, and saluted Lucas. It was a gesture of solidarity and deep respect, one that didn't need words to be understood. Lucas, still at his post, didn't move or acknowledge the gesture, but those watching knew it meant everything. The applause continued to ripple through the crowd, growing louder as more people joined in. Some clapped out of admiration, while others felt a mix of pride and gratitude for what Lucas had represented in that moment. Even those who had initially been recording for entertainment now lowered their phones, realizing they were witnessing something far more meaningful than they had expected. The drunk man, now subdued and removed from the scene by security, was barely a memory in the minds of the onlookers. What lingered instead was Lucas's unflinching resolve and the powerful message he had conveyed. As the applause began to fade, the crowd dispersed slowly, many still talking about what they had just witnessed. For some, it was a story they would share with friends and family. For others, it was a moment they would carry with them, a reminder of the importance of respect, discipline, and standing firm in the face of adversity. Lucas Bradford remained at his post, his gaze fixed forward, as though the day had unfolded like any other. But for everyone who had witnessed it, this day, and Lucas, would not soon be forgotten. What started as a tense moment in front of Buckingham Palace quickly spread across the globe. Videos of the incident, captured by countless tourists, flooded social media within hours. Clips of Lucas Bradford's calm reaction, his composed stance, and the powerful words he delivered after being humiliated, were shared with captions like, "This is what true dignity looks like," and "Strength isn't loud, it's unshakable." Social media platforms were abuzz with praise for the Royal Guard. People from all walks of life admired Lucas's restraint, calling him a hero of quiet strength. Comments poured in, highlighting the importance of respect, tradition, and the power of self-control. "We need more people like this," one user wrote, while another said, "Lucas Bradford has shown the world that dignity will always triumph over disrespect." As the video circulated, it sparked meaningful discussions. Debates emerged about the value of traditions in modern society. Some praised the role of the Royal Guards as symbols of honor and history, while others were struck by how Lucas embodied these values with unwavering commitment. His response wasn't just seen as a personal victory but as a representation of the principles his uniform stood for. News outlets quickly picked up the story, broadcasting it worldwide. Headlines like, "Royal Guard's dignified response goes viral," and "A lesson in strength and respect," dominated the media. Lucas's actions became a case study in emotional resilience and professionalism, inspiring not only the general public but also leaders and educators. In schools, teachers showed the video to students as an example of how to handle provocation with grace. Parents used it to teach their children about respect and self-control. Veterans and service members shared the video with pride, recognizing in Lucas the values they held dear. The drunk man's identity wasn't hidden for long. Social media users uncovered his name, and he faced widespread public backlash. Memes circulated mocking his behavior, while others called for accountability. Yet, the focus remained on Lucas, his silence, his discipline, and his ability to turn an act of disrespect into a global moment of admiration. Through it all, Lucas Bradford continued his duty, unaffected by the fame. For him, it wasn't about the spotlight. He had simply done what he believed was right, standing firm in his values and protecting the dignity of the uniform he wore. His quiet strength had made an unforgettable impact, reminding the world of the power of respect and the enduring importance of tradition. True strength isn't found in retaliation or anger, it lies in standing firm in your values, even when faced with the greatest humiliation. Lucas Bradford's unwavering composure reminds us all that dignity and respect are not weaknesses but powerful tools that can rise above even the harshest disrespect. His actions weren't just about upholding his duty, they were a testament to the importance of discipline, honor, and self-control in an often chaotic world. In a moment that could have easily turned into conflict, Lucas chose restraint and transformed an insult into a global lesson on what it means to stand for something greater than oneself. What would you have done in Lucas Bradford's position? Could you have stayed calm and dignified under such provocation? Share your thoughts below and let this story inspire each of us to uphold respect and integrity in our own lives. Let's strive to build a world where strength is measured not by retaliation but by the courage to stand tall in the face of adversity.